Hello, and thank you for clicking on this video for whatever your interest in this video might be. Hopefully you have listened to the other two recordings of parts 1 through 9 of this story that we're about to pick back up with on part 10 of the Bicentennial Man. I don't know how much exactly what part we'll get to today. So here's the thing. I was looking at it before I turned on the camera, and it's quite a bit longer. There's quite a bit more left than I had thought there was going to be. So I think there's going to be at least one. There's going to be one more video after this for the Bicentennial Man, unless I finish it all in this video, which I hope. There's only 20 pages left. It's really not. That's not too much, but we'll see what happens in today's video. See where we get, and because I talk. I like to tangent, and I'm gonna keep doing it. So anyways, really quickly before we start the reading, I want to give a shout out to a couple people. I would shout out Sour Patch. Let's see. I gotta shout out the guy. You know who you are. If you're the guy, you know who you are. You might be the shark. You're also the shark guy, the guy with the hair, the coolest hair. You know who you are. You're the guy. I gotta shout out the goat. Shout out tall guy. And there's some other people out there. Shout out GB. Others out there, I'll get you. We've got you. If you're watching, I don't even know if you're watching. Zack Attack, if you're watching, shout out. We'll get you in there. All right. So anyways, here we go. Part 10. Oh, only 2 minutes for this intro spiel. All right, cool. Part 10 of The Bicentennial Man by Asimov. Where we left off, Andrew Martin, the robot, Andrew, he wanted to learn more about human behavior, so he's going to go to the library to read some books that involve human behavior. We'll see what type of books. And he also has just begun wearing clothes. He's the first robot to wear clothing, and that's about where we left off. Now, if you remember, he wrote George Martin, who is the son of Little Miss, his original owner's daughter. He wrote George a note saying, "I'm going to the library," and then he left. And now we start part 10. Andrew never quite got to the library. He had studied the map. He knew the route, but not the appearance of it. The actual landmarks did not resemble the symbols on the map, and he would hesitate. Eventually, he thought he must have somehow gone wrong, for everything looked strange. He passed an occasional field robot, but by the time he decided he should ask his way, none were in sight. A vehicle passed and did not stop. Andrew stood irresolute, which meant calmly motionless, for coming across the field toward him were two human beings. So he just sees these two humans coming out of nowhere. He's like, all right, I'm good. He turned to face them, and they altered their course to meet him. A moment before, they had been talking loudly. He had heard their voices, but now they were silent. They had the look that Andrew associated with human uncertainty, and they were young, but not very young. 20, perhaps? Andrew could never judge human age. "Would you describe me the route to the Time Library, sirs?" One of them, the taller of the two, whose tall hat lengthened him still farther, almost grotesquely, said, not to Andrew, but to the other, "It's a robot." The other had a bulbous nose and heavy eyelids. He said, not to Andrew, but to the first, "It's wearing clothes." The tall one snapped his fingers. "It's a free robot. They have a robot at the old Martin place who isn't owned by anybody. Why else would it be wearing clothes?" "Ask it," said the one with the nose. "Are you the Martin robot?" asked the tall one. "I am Andrew Martin, sir," Andrew said. Good. Take off your clothes. Robots don't wear clothes, he said to the other. That's disgusting. Look at him. Andrew hesitated. He hadn't heard an order in that tone of voice in so long that his second law circuits had momentarily jammed. Really quickly, let's review the 3 laws of robotics. The 3 laws of robotics. The first law: a robot may not injure a human being or, through inaction, allow a human being to come to harm. No allowing humans to be harmed or harming robots, or harming humans. Second law of robotics. A robot must obey the orders given to it by human beings except where such orders should conflict with the first law. Robots must obey. Third law. A robot must protect its own existence as long as such protection does not conflict with the first or second law. Those are the 3 laws of robotics. Now, I'm sorry I'm belching so much. I've got my soda pop over here. My Diet Coke soda. My sody. Alright, well, let's get back to where were we? Oh, okay. So Andrew's second law circuits momentarily jammed, the ones that say he must obey a human, because he hasn't heard a command from a human like this in so long. So he's like, do I have to? But then here. The tall one repeated, "Take off your clothes, I order you." Slowly, Andrew began to remove them. "Just drop them," said the tall one. The nose said, "If it doesn't belong to anyone, it could be ours as much as anyone else's." "Anyway," said the tall one, "who's to object to anything we do? We're not damaging property," he turned to Andrew. "Stand on your head." "The head is not meant," Andrew began. "That's an order. If you don't know how, try anyway." Andrew hesitated again, then bent to put his head on the ground. He tried to lift his legs, but fell heavily. The tall one said, "Just lie there." He said to the other, "We can take him apart. Ever take a robot apart? Will he let us? How can he stop us?" There was no way Andrew could stop them if they ordered him in a forceful enough manner not to resist. The second law of obedience took precedence over the third law of self-preservation. In any case, he could not defend himself without possibly hurting them, and that would mean breaking the first law. At that thought, he felt every motile unit contract slightly, and he quivered as he lay there. The tall one walked over and pushed at him with his foot. "He's heavy. I think we'll need tools to do the job." The nose said, "We could order him to take himself apart. That would be fun to watch him try." "Yes," said the tall one thoughtfully, "but let's get him off the road. If someone comes along, it was too late." Someone had indeed come along, and it was George. From here he lay. Andrew had seen him topping a small... let me restart that sentence. From where he lay, Andrew had seen him topping a small rise in the middle distance, little hill. He would have liked to signal him in some way, but the last order had been just lie there, meaning do nothing. George was running now, and he arrived on the scene, somewhat winded. The 2 young men stepped back a little and then waited thoughtfully. "Andrew, has something gone wrong?" George asked anxiously. Andrew replied, "I am well, George." "Then stand up. What happened to your clothes?" "That your robot, Mac?" the tall young man asked. George turned sharply. "He's no one's robot. What's been going on here?" "We politely asked him to take his clothes off. What's that to you if you don't own him?" George turned to Andrew. "What were they doing, Andrew?" "It was their intention in some way to dismember me. They were about to move me to a quiet spot and order me to dismember myself." George looked at the 2 young men and his chin trembled. The young men retreated no farther. They were smiling. The tall one said lightly, "What are you going to do, Pudgy? Attack us?" George said, "No, I don't have to. This robot has been with my family for over 75 years. He knows us and he values us more than he values anyone else. I'm going to tell him that you two are threatening my life and that you plan to kill me. I will ask him to defend me. In choosing between me and you two, he will choose me. Do you know what will happen to you when he attacks you? Go, George. The two were backing away slightly, looking uneasy. George said sharply, Andrew, I am in danger and about to come to harm from these young men. Move toward them. Andrew did so, and the young men did not wait. They ran. All right, Andrew, relax, George said. He looked unstrung. He was far past the age where he could face the possibility of a dust-up with one young man, let alone two. So he's too old to fight. I couldn't have hurt them, George. I could see they were not attacking you. I didn't order you to attack them. I only told you to move toward them. Their own fears did the rest. How can they fear robots? It's a disease of mankind, one which has not yet been cured. But never mind that. What the devil are you doing here, Andrew? Good thing I found your note. I was just on the point of turning back and hiring a helicopter when I found you. How did you get it into your head to go to the library? I would have brought you any book you needed. I am Andrew began. Free robot. Yes. All right. What did you want in the library? I want to know more about human beings, about the world, about everything, and about robots, George. I want to write a history about robots. This robot, who was made to just serve purposes of a housekeeper, wants to write a history about robots. He's been very innovative to robot history, by the way, if you've been following along in the story. As of which, if you would like to follow along, just about anything I read, in fact, anything that I read should be able to be found online for free. Just type in the name of the, for instance, type in the name of the story, like the Bicentennial Man, so a period at the end, PDF. Or just type in the name of the story, free online story, or free online. Careful what you click on, and I'm going to begin trying to link some of the stories in the videos, but I'm not going to link the Bicentennial Man at all since I've already started it. But again, the name of the story .pdf can usually, almost always, should be able to pull up a copy of what I'm reading if you would like to follow along or read ahead. I know some of you are fast readers. Shout out my homie on that one. You know who you, my homie. Come on, my homie, if you were watching. It's you. Let's see. How can they fear robots? It's a disease. No, Andrew's a free robot. He wants to write a history about robots. All right. George put his arm on the other's shoulder. Well, let's walk home, but pick up your clothes first, Andrew. There are a million books on robotics, and all of them include histories of the science. The world is growing saturated, not only with robots, but with information about robots. Andrew shook his head, a human gesture he had lately begun to adopt. He's starting to mimic body language and mimic nonverbal gestures / cues. Not a history of robotics, sir. A history of robots by a robot. I want to explain how robots feel about what has happened since the first ones were allowed to work and live on Earth. George's eyebrows lifted, but he said nothing in direct response. Every section of this story just gets better and better. I love it so much. Every time I just, if you are following along in these videos or reading along, you're gonna love the ending. I'm going to stop talking. Start reading. Alright, we'll do 2 more sections today because I'm already at 15 minutes. So we'll get up to section 18. We'll read through 17, stop before 18. I'm sorry, no, we'll read up to 12, stop before 13. My Roman numeral thinking was off. Sorry. Alright. 11. Little Miss was just past her 83rd birthday. Little Miss. 83rd birthday. But there was nothing about her that was lacking in either energy or determination. She gestured with her cane oftener than she propped herself up with it. She listened to the story in a fury of indignation. George, that's horrible. Who were those young ruffians? I don't know. What difference does it make? In the end, they did not do any damage. They might have. You're a lawyer, George, and if you're well off, it's entirely due to the talents of Andrew. It was the money he earned that is the foundation of everything we have. He provides the continuity for this family, and I will not have him treated as a wind-up toy. What would you have me do, Mother? George asked. I said you're a lawyer. Don't you listen? You set up a test case somehow, and you force the regional courts to declare for robot rights and get the legislature to pass the necessary bills. Carry the whole thing to the World Court. World Court would be a phenomenal... It's an interesting idea, actually. I shouldn't say one way or the other, but it's a very interesting idea to think about, having a world court, a worldwide system of laws to abide by, and a worldwide system of judgment. That's creepy, Ed, but there's a lot of pros and a lot of cons. Okay. To carry the whole thing to the World Court, if you have to. I'll be watching, George, and I'll tolerate no shirking, which means she's not going to tolerate any skimping, any not doing your best. She was serious, so what began as a way of soothing the fearsome old lady became an involved matter with enough legal entanglement to make it interesting. As senior partner of Feingold and Martin, George blotted strategy. But he left the actual work to his junior partners, with much of it a matter for his son Paul, who was also a member of the firm and who reported dutifully nearly every day to his grandmother. She, in return, discussed the case every day with Andrew. Andrew was deeply involved. His work on his book on robots was delayed and delayed again, as he pored over the legal arguments and even at times made very diffident suggestions. George told me that day I was attacked that human beings have always been afraid of robots, he said one day. As long as they are, the courts and the legislature are not likely to work hard on behalf of robots. Should not something be done about public opinion? So, while Paul stayed in court, George took to the public platform. It gave him the advantage of being informal, and he even went so far sometimes as to wear the new loose style of clothing, which he called drapery. Paul chided him. Just don't trip over it on stage, Dad. George replied despondently, I'll try not to. He addressed the annual convention of Hollow News editors on one occasion and said in part, if by virtue of the second law we can demand of any robot unlimited obedience in all respects not involving harm to a human being, then any human being has a fearsome power over any robot. Any robot. In particular, since second law supersedes third law, any human being can use the law of obedience to overcome the law of self-protection. He can order any robot to damage itself or even destroy itself for any reason or for no reason. Is this just? Would we treat an animal so? Even an inanimate object, which had given us good service, has a claim on our consideration. And a robot is not insensitive. It is not an animal. It can think well enough so that it can talk to us, reason with us, joke with us. Can we treat them as friends? Can we work together with them and not give them some of the fruits of that friendship? Some of the benefits of co-working? Benefits of co-working. Huge importance. If a man has the right to give a robot any order that does not involve harm to a human being, he should have the decency never to give a robot any order that involves harm to a robot, unless human safety absolutely requires it. With great power goes great responsibility. It's been said many times. Spider-Man. Where were we? With great power goes great responsibility. And if the robots have 3 laws to protect men, is it too much to ask that men have a law or 2 to protect robots? Andrew was right. It was the battle over public opinion that held the key to courts and legislature. In the end, a law was passed that set up conditions under which robot harming orders were forbidden. It was endlessly qualified, and the punishments for violating the law were totally inadequate. But the principle was established. So meaning this law was, people didn't really pay attention to it, and it was constantly being broken without punishment. But right now, the fact that this law has been established is monumental. It's huge. Particularly in Andrew's eyes, I'd say. Perhaps Isaac Asimov is about to say. It was endlessly qualified, so it was a good law. No, I think that actually means that it takes a lot to break that law. It was endlessly qualified. It takes a lot to break the law. I think that's what that means. And the punishments for violating the law were totally inadequate, meaning the punishments were like nothing. But the principle was established. The final passage by the world legislature came through on the day of Little Miss's death. That was no coincidence. Little Miss held on to life desperately during the last debate and let go only when the word of victory arrived. Her last smile was for Andrew. Her last words were, "You've been good to us, Andrew." She died with her hand holding his, while her son and his wife and children remained at a respectful distance from both. That always got me. That scene. Okay, this story is made into a very amazing movie, if I haven't already said that, and I highly recommend the movie. It's very sad. One of the first very sad movies that I saw when I was young, I'd consider, and this, so like this, oh, I love it. It gets me. All right, section 12. It's not too long, but we're almost at 24 minutes. It's okay. Section 12. Andrew waited patiently when the receptionist robot disappeared into the inner office. The receptionist might have used the holographic chatterbox, but unquestionably it was perturbed by having to deal with another robot rather than with a human being. Andrew passed the time revolving the matter in his mind. Could unroboted be used as an analog of unmanned? Or had unmanned become a metaphoric term sufficiently divorced from its original, literal meaning to be applied to robots or to women for that matter? Such problems frequently arose as he worked on his books on robots. The trick of thinking out sentences to express all complexities had undoubtedly increased his vocabulary. Occasionally, someone came into the room to stare at him, and he did not try to avoid the glance. He looked at each calmly, and each in turn looked away. Stared down. Paul Martin finally emerged. He looked surprised, or he would have if Andrew could have made out his expression with certainty. Paul had taken to wearing the heavy makeup that fashion was dictating for both genders. Though it made sharper and firmer the somewhat bland lines of Paul's face, Andrew disapproved. He found that disapproving of human beings, as long as he did not express it verbally, did not make him very uneasy. He could even write the disapproval. He was sure it had not always been so. So he notices his behavior has changed. Come in, Andrew. I'm sorry I made you wait, but there was something I had to finish. Come in. You said you wanted to talk to me, but I didn't know you meant here in town. If you are busy, Paul, I am prepared to continue to wait. Paul glanced at the interplay of shifting shadows on the dial on the wall that served as timepiece and said, I can make some time. Did you come alone? I hired an automobile. Any trouble? Paul asked, with more than a trace of anxiety. I wasn't expecting any. My rights are protected. Paul looked all the more anxious for that. Andrew, I've explained that the law is unenforceable, at least under most conditions, and if you insist on wearing clothes, you'll run into trouble eventually, just like that first time. And only time, Paul. I'm sorry you are displeased. Well, look at it this way, Paul said. You are virtually a living legend, Andrew, and you are too valuable in many different ways for you to have any right to take chances with yourself. By the way, how's the book coming? I'm approaching the end, Paul. The publisher is quite pleased. Good. I don't know that he's necessarily pleased with the book as a book. I think he expects to sell many copies because it's written by a robot, and that's what pleases him. Only human, I'm afraid. I'm not displeased. Let it sell for whatever reason, since it will mean money and I can use some. Grandmother left you. Little Miss was generous, and I'm sure I can count on the family to help out further. But it is the royalties from the book on which I am counting to help me through the next step. So he just finished writing his book, just about. Now he's talking about a next step. What is this going to be? Let me take a sip of my soda pop. All right, back to the story. What next step is that? Paul asked. I wish to see the head of U.S. Robots and Mechanical Men Corporation, RMMC. I have tried to make an appointment, but so far I have not been able to reach him. The corporation did not cooperate with me in the writing of the book, so I am not surprised, you understand. Paul was clearly amused. Cooperation is the last thing you can expect. They didn't cooperate with us in our great fight for robot rights. Quite the reverse, and you can see why. Give the robot rights and people may not want to buy them. Nevertheless, said Andrew, if you call them, you may be able to obtain an interview for me. I'm no popular with them than you are, Andrew. But perhaps you can hint that by seeing me, they may head off a campaign by Feingold and Martin to strengthen the rights of robots further. Wouldn't that be a lie, Andrew? Yes, Paul, and I can't tell one. That's why you must call. You can't lie, but you can urge me to tell a lie. Is that it? You're getting more human all the time, Andrew. So, Andrew wants to set up a meeting with the head of basically the Department of Robotics. It's the U.S. Robots and Mechanical Men Corporation, an invented agency, obviously. Alright, so remember, excuse me, my soda burps. Towards the beginning of the story, I think in part 1, old what's-his-face Martin, original Sir, was in and out of that building with that meeting with Andrew to talk about how his positronic pathways are forming and the consciousness and everything. And the gentleman they met with at that time, he wanted to take Andrew for studying. That's like the same corporation they're going back to talk to. Well, I'm at a half hour on this video. I can't believe. If anyone listens to this, I thank you. You're awesome. If you hear this last like 5 seconds of the excuse me, more belches. Oh my goodness. A couple seconds of the video, like, you're insane. Let me know if it's you, because that's awesome. Like, I wouldn't expect anyone to, but I appreciate it if you do. I have a lot of fun reading these things and sharing them with anybody who could be possibly interested now or forever. Also, if you are still listening, just a last quick bit. Again, like I just said, I just have a lot of fun doing this. Even if 1 or 2 people watch the video, I don't care. Really, whatever. But I have no agenda, no schedule for videos or things other than finishing up this one and continue posting frequently, I guess consistently. But I do have quite a few things I want to do with this channel, like reading like stories and a couple of novels, a few novels, particularly well, I'm not going to say anymore, but more stories to come, hopefully shorter, more condensed, like 1, maybe 2-parter videos, and then also going to throw in a novel or 2 pretty soon here. I'm really excited about. All right, stay cool, have a great day. And it was Hawaiian Day at work today. That's why I'm wearing this shirt. Have a wonderful afternoon.